Story 1. Do you like the front door? Yes, 100%. I am usually in another room with headphones on. I do not need someone creeping in. Story 2. Yes, because I live in a building downtown. I don't always know who is in the halls. Even if it is just my neighbors, our doors look similar. I would rather they not accidentally stumble into my apartment while I am sitting there shirtless and eating crackers or whatever. We also lock our apartment door when we are not home alone, to be honest. Story 3. One day my wife left for work, and I hopped in the shower. A few minutes later the bathroom door opened, and I figured she had forgotten something and asked, "What's up?" A man's voice answered. I screamed and jumped through the curtain. It tore the rod off the wall and knocked the shower head, spraying the room. In a wet, soapy tangle, I got on top of the guy and threw the best punches a naked, wet man can deliver to a wriggling shower curtain. I landed a couple before the intruder started to cry like a scared child. It was tragically comedic to get up. I turned off the water and uncovered the trespasser. It was a developmentally delayed teenager from down the street. He was all wound up, bawling and wouldn't calm down. I pulled on some pants and dragged him by the arm back home. His parents explained that he had recently started walking around and trying to open doors. My wife had left the garage open, and the door unlocked. His parents called the police, and they showed up while I was trying to assess the damage to my bathroom. I didn't get in any trouble, but it was a bother. Moral of the story: lock the doors. Story 4. Yes. I worked with a man who lived in the suburbs, and a homeless person was sleeping in his house when he woke up. His daughter had come home for a visit that weekend and forgot to lock the door when she arrived late at night. It is not difficult to lock your door and may save you from an inconvenience like this or worse. Story 5. I lock my door because every time I see it unlocked, all I hear is that there were no signs of forced entry. Story 6. To answer your question about why you would not lock your door and why, I lock mine because it takes only 2 seconds to unlock it if I need to exit the house. What is the purpose of having locks if you do not use them? It is just basic security. Story 7. The only people who do not lock their doors are those who grow up in small towns where they know everyone and do not think their neighbor is a possible murderer. Everyone else is sane and locks their door. Edit. I am not being literal when I say people who lock their doors think their neighbors are murderers. Story 8. Yes, I lock all the doors multiple times. I get super paranoid, so I lock all the doors and keep a weapon nearby in case someone breaks in. My biggest fear is getting robbed. Story 9. We always keep our doors locked unless we know someone is coming over. We find it easier to have them locked by default so you do not have to run around checking. I still do a walk around at night before bed to make sure everything is shut and locked. Story 10. Yes. There is zero reason not to. I do not care how safe the neighborhood is. Not locking your door is nonsensical. It is a pointless risk with no reward. Story 11. Yes. I want to have the ability to decide who enters my place and who does not. The lock provides that freedom. Story 12. No, I live in a small suburb in Australia with lots of family coming in and out the door. If it was locked, I would be getting up to open the door for them more than sitting. Story 13. Of course, I even lock my bedroom door when taking a shower and lock my shower door. We do not live in Disneyland, and after working in a prison and hearing plenty of robbery stories, I advise that you secure your belongings as well. The fact is, you never know. Story 14. Yes, of course. One of the most common ways burglars and sexual offenders enter is by trying a door or window. Story 15. Yes, because I do not want the trauma or cleanup of spraying someone's brains all over my walls and ceiling. Story 16. No, I do not even lock the door when I leave the house. However, I live in the middle of a forest, close to a small rural town with virtually no crime. Story 17. It depends on where I am. I own property in Sweden, Poland, and Hungary. I lock my door when staying at the Swedish property, but I am rarely there nowadays. I have a friend staying there now. It is not in the best part of town, so it is a good idea to lock the doors. In Poland and Hungary, no. Both properties are in very remote areas with no real crime to speak of. A neighbor once got drunk and stole my tractor, and a local police officer shot out my porch light while teaching his son to shoot an air rifle. Story 18. Yes, because I live in the Bay Area, and a few years ago I was reading a true crime story. The terrible murderer chose his victim by going down an apartment hallway, trying doors until he found one that was unlocked. Story 19. I really don't know why people do not lock their doors. No matter how safe your neighborhood is, there are always awful people who will specifically target those places because they know people feel safe enough not to lock their doors. It is always better to be safe than sorry. Story 20. Only at night. During the day, the dogs in the front yard make it impossible for strangers to get close, despite being friendly once approached. Story 21. Absolutely. I have seen too many true crime stories start out with an unlocked door. I am not going to make it easy for serial killer Bob. You have to work for this kill. Story 22. Yes, because I rent and I do not want my landlord to come in unexpectedly. Although I know they cannot do that without notice. Am I a paranoid single woman? Story 23. Typically, yes. I live in a very safe area, but I always feel like I cannot be too safe. I also watch too many murder documentaries. Story 24. I have a smart deadbolt that latches itself. I never forget to lock it and I always have access to it. Win-win. Story 25. Yeah, I always lock up even when I'm home. You never know who might try the handle out of habit or bad intentions. Plus, between noise-canceling headphones and being focused on whatever I am doing, I wouldn't hear an intruder until it is too late. True crime stories have definitely ruined my sense of security, but it is better to be safe than sorry. And let's be real, my neighbors probably would appreciate not having to deal with my sleepwalking self wandering the halls. Story 26. In addition to criminal reasons, sometimes people enter the wrong door by accident, such as going to the wrong floor in an apartment building or misreading the address for a friend's party. And that can be frightening as well. Story 27. It locks automatically when I close it. I prefer it that way. I do not want anyone walking in, not even friends or family. Please do not come unannounced. Maybe I am sleeping, maybe I am showering. Story 28. Yes, all the time because I live in a nice city with people who are crazy, addicted, or unstable. Past circumstances prove I am right. Story 29. Absolutely. When I was younger, I watched a video of a man who had been arrested for breaking and entering and a bunch of other things. When he was asked why, he said something along the lines of, "The door was unlocked. I assumed it meant I was allowed in. He did not go into the ones that were locked." Story 30. I've never understood why you wouldn't lock your front door, whether you are alone or not. It takes less than 3 seconds to turn a knob or click a button, making it much harder for someone to break in, and for most, preventing it altogether. If you watch interviews of past criminals, they always advise locking your doors. Most do not even attempt to enter a home if it is locked. Taking 3 seconds to lock a door could save you from harm or having all your belongings stolen. Story 31. All doors leading to the outside are always closed unless I am taking out the trash, getting mail, or my mother is watering our plants and I am already inside. Story 32. Someone tried to force their way into my apartment one time when I was in the suburbs. Now, I don't go there often unless it is nighttime. I live on the outskirts of a small town. Story 33. I even lock my bathroom door when on the toilet. I want time for at least a courtesy wipe if someone breaks in. Story 34. Yes, that is why there are locks on doors, to protect yourself from what could be outside trying to get in. That is why most people lock their doors. Story 35. Yes. I read an interview of a serial killer who said sometimes he chose to kill people who left their doors unlocked because it meant they wanted or did not care for him to come in and do it. Story 36. I even lock my bathroom door despite living alone when I shower. I have listened to enough murder podcasts to not take any chances. Story 37. Not really, unless I want to get adventurous. I live in the countryside, and sometimes people just come here. Story 38. I do not think I have ever locked my door before last week, when the toddler decided to wander at sunrise before everyone got up. He went in the yard, saw a bumblebee, and started crying because he could not get back inside. Story 39. Europe, male army. Always lock up. It is a simple barrier to at least delay unwanted visitors. There are a lot of strange people out there. Better safe than sorry. Story 40. This question appears very North American because, in most of the world, you need a key to open the door to the house even if it is not locked. You move the latching mechanism with the key, as there is no door handle that moves. Story 41. I do it immediately when I get in. It is kind of a routine. Locking the door helps me feel like the day is done, and I can finally settle into my space. Story 42. Watching car chases in Los Angeles on television and seeing the perpetrators abandon the car and run through backyards trying doors makes me keep the doors locked. Story 43. Yes, it is a habit, and I am in an apartment complex with about 100 people I do not know and a landlord. Story 44. Always grew up in a major city, and it never occurred to me to do anything but lock and deadbolt the front door all the time once everyone was home. It was only in college when I moved off campus and lived with a friend who grew up in the suburbs. He rarely locked the front door during the day and often left it unlocked even at night when he went to sleep. I remember leaving the house one morning after we first moved in and was horrified to realize the door had been unlocked all night. It was my first real "holy crap, was my dad right?" moment because he was always emphasizing checking to make sure doors were locked before you went to sleep. So I became the door lock checker for the apartment after that. Story 45. If there is a door that is unlocked, that is wrongful entry and a lesser crime. You would be surprised how many people keep their car keys right next to the front door. I went on many joy rides back in my younger days. Story 46. I need to lock the sliding door on my back porch because one time my cat figured out how to open it. Later that day, a wallaby hopped into my house. While it was amusing at first, it did not end well. This is an issue very specific to the Australian bush. Story 47. Inside good, outside bad. I deadbolt the doors that have deadbolts and lock any door that leads outside. Windows included, even the ones on the second floor. Story 48. Isn't locking your front door something you would do as a completely normal thing? Pardon my ignorance, and I'm not being rude, but why is this even a question? I can't imagine ever leaving my door unlocked. I'm from the United Kingdom, and although crime is definitely an issue, I assume most of you are from the United States. Why is it even common to leave doors unlocked? Story 49. I, 51-year-old male, never experienced this until February, when a delivery man came to my door at 9 in the morning. I was settling into my work-from-home job and making a list of tasks for the day when I noticed him lingering behind the frosted glass of my front door. Usually, delivery personnel drop off packages and leave, but the shadow behind my door that day seemed to hesitate. I thought he might need a signature, so I opened the door. A completely naked man smiled at me, said, "That's a yes," began opening the screen door, and started toward me. For the first time in my life, I acted quickly and kicked the screen door at him, knocking him backward. I slammed the front door, locked it, and called emergency services. Fortunately, an officer on patrol only a block away arrived within minutes. There was a brief standoff between the naked stranger and the officer in my driveway. Suddenly, about 8 other officers arrived, and despite the 21-degree Fahrenheit temperature, the man laid down and allowed himself to be handcuffed and taken into custody. Since then, I lock my door when I am home alone. Story 50. Yes, I have had 2 break-ins in my life. The first time, someone was crawling through my bedroom window while I was in bed. The second time, I arrived at my business early one morning before the staff arrived and found someone inside the building. I am the most important person in my life, so I will keep my doors locked. Story 51. In Baltimore, Maryland, someone tried to break in while I was home alone because my husband was away for work. The door was locked, but they violently shook it. My dog went ballistic, and I immediately grabbed my gun for my safety. My dog had a staring contest with whoever was trying to break in. The light was on in my living room, and it was pitch black outside, so I knew they were looking right at us. I had the gun in my hand with the safety on, pointed down, and nothing in the chamber, but they saw it. I have never experienced that again. I am not obsessed with guns. Baltimore is a very dangerous city, and we felt we needed more than a dog for protection. Where we live now, we do not feel the need for that level of security anymore, thank goodness. Story 52. South African here. 200% locked doors, arm electric fence, high walls and burglar bars on windows. The gun safe stays open, ready to go. When I come inside, even for 2 minutes, the door gets locked behind me. When I go outside, my firearm comes with me. I have private security on standby. We have one of the highest crime rates in the world. Story 53. I have never understood the brag. We never lock our doors. I do not care if I live close enough to the police station to smell when the chief had a big lunch. I am locking my doors. The same goes for leaving windows wide open all the time. Why would you want people to see into your house? Story 54. Yes. Laugh out loud. I am very paranoid when I am alone but would sleep perfectly fine with the door open when my partner is home. Story 55. Wherever I have lived in the United Kingdom, the door locks itself when you shut it, so it is locked all the time. I think this is fairly common as certain types of front door locks reduce your insurance premiums, so every rented place had them. You do get good at remembering to keep your house keys on you when you put out the bins though. Story 56. I moved up to where I am now from a small village. We kept our doors unlocked all the time there. When I moved to a small town where I currently live, the first year I had to get out of the habit of leaving my front door unlocked because people would just walk in, often intoxicated. When I started locking my door, suddenly these people stopped trying the handle. I am pretty certain they were scouting the house to steal, and judging by a whole Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5 controller, and more going missing during this time, I am probably right. Anyway, lock your doors. Always. Story 57. The number of times I have had a delivery person jiggle the door handle when I have not immediately opened the door has confirmed I need my doors locked. They generally get a fright when I shout at them through my door camera. But who tries a door if they are honest? One of the few times I did not have a door locked, an estate agent walked in with a family of 5, saying the owner lets him show other similar units and just leaves the doors unlocked for ease of access. He expected me to let people view my place still. No. I asked them to leave and called security to remove them from the building. Lock your doors. Story 58. I constantly forget to lock my apartment door during the day, not so much, but usually at night. I have yet to be murdered. Story 59. Never. I live in Canada and have almost never locked my door in the last 20 years. I have even come home twice to find my dogs waiting on the porch with the door wide open. Not on purpose. I also rarely lock my cars, even in public parking. This is not something I do deliberately, but rather something I just don't bother with. I am not paranoid about it, and my children and my wife are the same. Story 60. I only lock my door at night or if I am going to be gone for more than just the day. Otherwise, it is unlocked. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.